Howdy, it's K-Bex. I know it's been a while, but I frankly had burnout after doing Novel November and the staff panto, and then obviously my normal work. It was just a lot all at once, so I spent most of my Christmas break just on the sofa trying to recharge, but I feel loads better now, mostly with the help of lots of snacks. I've been trying to clear out some of the leftovers from Christmas. My lunch was just like the random selection of like, I don't know, cheese and chorizo and the cushion and all that sort of stuff that just doesn't belong together on a plate, but trying to get it out of the way before January hits, because for some reason that makes you feel better, getting it all out of the way, ready for a clean start. Well, I know January's already hit, but like before I go back to work on Monday, the sort of a clean house, clean soul sort of feeling. Now that I am well rested and powered by lots of sugar and lots of fats, that I'd do a video talking about my synopsis. So because of Novel November, I spent an awful lot of time, obviously, working on my other novel. But the finished novel just ended up kind of sitting there waiting for me to be available to continue my query letter and to try and do the synopsis. Now, before all this, I did actually have a go at writing my synopsis for the first time. Now, I did look up some advice, but the one thing I didn't really look up was the word count. I don't know why I didn't do that. So I just thought I'm just going to sit and type out all the major things that happen in the story. There can't be that many things. For those of you who don't know, it is a YA urban fantasy, so lots of demons and witchcraft. This story I've been working on for forever by this point. I did my synopsis, typing out all what I thought was just the major plot points. It was 9 pages long. So yeah, no one's going to read a 9-page synopsis. So perfectly timed with me having written this huge bloated synopsis. I went to a seminar in Nottingham by Writing East Midlands, and it was called the Agent Masterclass. She basically told us the ins and outs of doing the query letter and, you know, helped me add a few things, but at least on that I was a little bit more on track. I knew I wasn't on track with the synopsis. All of her advice I wrote down in my lovely notebook. I love this notebook, it's so great. I wrote it in here, and of course that was, I think, November. So my brain had turned to pudding between doing this and yesterday when I had a look at it again. And I'm so glad I wrote relatively detailed notes, because otherwise I'd have no idea what the hell happened that day, because it was just those sort of 2.5 to 3 months where everything was a blur and I had no idea what was going on. I had a look through my notes, and she gave me a very helpful little sheet, which I won't show you too much because obviously that's her stuff. She gave an example synopsis for a Disney film that was obviously to show us what she'd leave out and what she'd put in, and I thought it was a really great way of doing it. And she breaks hers down into the 3-act structure, which makes sense. So I went from my bloated version, which originally I was just naively like, oh, I'll just highlight all of the bits that are Viola's development, so my main character Viola. I'll just highlight all the bits that were her personal development. As you can see on every page, there's loads. Managed to get the page number down from 9, which it was only because I got rid of the margins and made the writing smaller. So even though I said this obviously doesn't look like 9 pages, that's because of it. It was just so I could print it out on fewer sheets. But on Microsoft Word, it's still 9 pages. But what I did was, instead of just deleting anything that wasn't highlighted, because that was my original plan, and clearly that sucks because it's so much highlighting. So I decided to just follow her 3-act structure. So I have this, which I know still looks a decent amount, but at least this looks more workable into turning into, she said, roughly about 500-600 words, you know, an A4 page. We don't really want more than that. Trying to think about my story in 3 parts, which when I planned it originally, it was the Save the Cats structure that I filled in. And Save the Cat is brilliant. And as I went along, I added bits in, because obviously, you know, when I wrote the plan for my first novel, you don't know what the pitfalls are until you start writing. So I made sure to have it as like a working document. I kept updating it. And then that I thought, oh, that's easy. I'll just use that to help me write my synopsis, which of course is why I've ended up with so many words. And so I just thought, I'll do this. And then she said to narrow it down to sort of like 3 bullet points per act out of the 3 acts. When I first sort of saw the word synopsis, and I saw that you shouldn't hide anything from the agents, you're supposed to reveal, you know, big things. Like there's a huge reveal in sort of the end of Act 2 for me. and you're supposed to tell them, you know, it's not supposed to be a surprise. They're supposed to know in the synopsis so that they know whether to ask for your full manuscript. Like, is it going to be worth it? I had to reveal everything, and I originally thought then, well, I'm just going to write the summary like in a very dry fashion, which is what this is. It's like, this happens, and then this happens, and this happens. But the Agent Masterclass, she made it quite clear that it's still a little bit like the query letter where you're trying to tease them, even though you have to tell them stuff. She was clear that you won't be able to have time to talk about everything. For example, I was trying to squeeze in all of the secondary characters, like, unless it's vital for the main plot. Secondary storylines don't necessarily always intertwine with the main storylines. It might be a supporting one with a very different character. She said that it might be really good characters who you have to leave out. And I think there's a couple of key secondary characters that have their own little arcs, but it doesn't feed into the absolute core of the story. I mean, it does obviously in parts, and it kind of mirrors Viola's own journey, but it's done with the purpose of mirroring Viola in some way. And so these two characters, I've got a young witch called Becky, and who Viola eventually, when she starts to develop in her own confidence, starts to be more like a mentor to. And then I've got Nikita, who is passionate and fiery and just really exciting and interesting to like read. I love the scenes with Nikita. I might not be able to talk about those in my summary, depending on how long it takes me to talk about Viola and Luca and Andrea, you know, or key characters. So the protagonist is Viola. Luca is the young man that kind of pulls her into this world, and so there's a teased love interest there. And Andrea is kind of a mentor figure. And I don't think I can talk about Ula either. She just doesn't seem like there's going to be enough there, which is always very sad. But the woman who ran the session said that there's no way you're going to talk about all these things, and to remember that this is all in the service of getting them to want to read your full manuscript, and those things will obviously reveal themselves in the story as they read anyway. If there's a few little surprises along the way that aren't major like plot spoilers, but just nice little, you know, things like characters that are really exciting and interesting, and you feel invested in those, then the agent, when they're reading it, might be a little bit more interested in your manuscript anyway, rather than just telling them absolutely everything. And like I said, clearly don't have time. 1 page. This is very short. I did 9. So my task now is to take these notes and to turn them into a much shorter, much more interesting, less like cardboard version of my synopsis, and that's what I'm going to begin doing today. I know I'm never going to get it done today because I've learned in this journey for writing for my first novel that time is important in between each task. So, like, for example, I think I've done my query letter, but I will still keep going back to it every week or two, whatever, whilst I'm doing, say, like the synopsis, just to give it another fresh pair of eyes. Have I learned anything new? Is it just that something that I thought landed when I first wrote it no longer like hits? It doesn't feel right. It feels a bit clunky. Is the grammar as polished as it could be? And the same is going to go for the synopsis. As she said in her session, quite rightly, I don't know why I didn't think of this, that you are trying to put your writing on show, on display. If your synopsis sounds like an exciting plot but is written in a very dry manner, even if it's not boring, if it's just dry and plain and simple and straightforward to the point, they don't get a flavour of what kind of writer you are. But on the other side of that, I've heard loads of advice about, like, say, avoiding lots of rhetorical questions and try not to sound too much like, oh, enigma, you know, avoiding uses of ellipsis and all that sort of stuff. Frankly, conflicting advice between different sources, but I'm going to do a healthy dose of each. So I'm going to have little careful sprinklings of some of that more figurative language, because I still want to show them I can do that, and it is indeed in my novel. So it needs to serve a purpose, be short and sweet, but still showcase enough of my writing skill. And that's clearly tricky because I've already failed at I've already failed at that task. I will catch up with you at the end of this session of me having a go at this and see where I've got to, and see if any of this rubbish was actually helpful in the first place, because I have a strong suspicion that it won't be. All right, bye. I'm over an hour in and I've only got 304 words. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Clearly, I don't know how to be bloody concise. some of these lines I just keep deleting because I think that sounds cheesy, that sounds really overused. I am armed with extra blanket, my little arm warmer thingies, a cup of tea. You'd think I don't have the heating on. I do. It's just really cold next to this window. I don't know if you can see the Christmas lights or not. Kind of flashing next to me there. They'll obviously be for the chop in the next couple of days. The Christmas decorations in here have already gone down. I don't know about you guys, but I don't know what it is about the brand new year, but I want to like sanitize Christmas. No, I'm joking. But it is like the de-Christmasization. Is that a word I can make up? The de-Christmasization of the house. Make me feel a bit cleaner again, feel a bit tidier, get rid of some of the extra fluff. Don't get me wrong, I love Christmas and I actually had the decorations up probably about a week longer this year than I do normally. Like, I was in desperate need of some cheer. But anyway, I'm rambling, I'm going off on a tangent because I don't want to do any more writing. Let's go. As you can probably tell from the curtains being shut, this is hours later. I've managed to write a synopsis that is 708 words, which is obviously vastly better than the 9 pages I had originally wrote. And I followed the sort of layout that I was told to follow by the Writing East Midlands Masterclass. And yeah, it's definitely a vast improvement. In fact, the first half, when obviously I was full of energy, is actually, pretty good. I'm quite happy with myself. The second half, however, when I realised I was getting like this far from the first page, at the end of the first page, and I realised that I got probably the last act to talk about, I was like, trying to fit it all in. So I think the second half, predominantly the last third, I'll say, is probably not anywhere near as good as the first bit, but I've got time to go back and polish that when I've had a chance to get away from it and refresh my mind and all that jazz. So I'll come back to that probably tomorrow and start from like the last third and have a rework of that. I'm really, really pleased that I decided to have another crack at this, particularly, first day of the year and fresh start and all that, and it definitely reads loads better than what I've written before. So I'm feeling hopeful that maybe I'll be able to start sending off my first agent submissions by the end of January, which really was actually supposed to be the end of August, but alrighty. If you guys have got any questions about synopsises, please feel free to pop them in the comments. But for now, thanks, bye.